I should like to tell you that I have seen some of the experiments shown in this film actually carried out at the All-Russian Physiological Congress. As you can imagine, technique is everything. Besides such work as you are about to see, Bryukhanenko shares the credit for the methods of human blood transfusion which were first developed in the Soviet Union and are now practiced in this country, which have saved so many lives during the war. What enabled Soviet scientists to solve this problem? Long ago, science established the fact that animal organs and tissues isolated from the whole organism can be maintained in a living state. But in order to achieve this, special artificial conditions must be created. Isolated organs can be brought to life even though they've been removed from the animal's corpse some time after death. Here's a dog's heart. It can function as well in artificial conditions as in a living organism, and for this purpose, blood is introduced into the cardiac vessels. The isolated heart beats just as it did a few hours previously in the living dog. The following experiment is conducted on lungs taken from an animal. Bellows distend the lungs and fill them with air. The venous blood is forced into the lungs by the action of the pump. The dark venous blood passes through this tube. In the lungs, it takes up oxygen and becomes arterial blood. The isolated lungs breathe, producing the same chemical changes as in the living animal. An animal's head can also live in the isolated condition. Here is the plan of the experiment. The arterial pump takes arterial blood from the reservoir to the head, while the venous pump drains off the venous blood. The blood is arterialized in the reservoir, where there is a steady flow of oxygen. The artificial blood circulation ensures the metabolism necessary for the life of the head. The isolated head lives on for hours and reacts to external stimuli. The isolated head even reacts to light and to sound. The revival of individual organs enabled scientists to proceed to experiment on reviving the whole organism.
Here's what happened after the discovery of the use of oxygenated blood. Thousands of years ago, the giant growth and the phenomenon of Holden were discovered at zero gravitation in space. Protected from magnetic fields and radiation, all biological bodies can be stored lifeless without changing, that is, without aging biologically. These bodies can be resuscitated with oxygenated blood of the same factor, and can go on living without disturbing side effects. No matter how long the Holden took. Upon waking up, testers believed they had only nodded off for a moment. Other advantages of zero gravity. Operations on lifeless bodies without time limit. For the growing together must be briefly revived with oxygen-rich blood. Laser biomerging works only on living bodies. Experiments with trained animals and brain transplantation into younger bodies confirmed that the ego consciousness is only in the brain. When doing research in a team using Holden, colleagues do not age while waiting for results. Using the Holden tactic, statistical age-related brain death was observed in mammals after about 108 years. Around 108 years of age, a vein burst in the brain in the temple area. The heart could pump blood healthily for approximately 200 years. Age-related brain death has been defeated. Only brains bred free of feedback were suitable for this. Breeding without feedback means breeding under sufficiently strong anesthesia in quiet rooms. Younger cloned brain parts, feedback-free bred, replace piece by piece, older brain parts. There are different levels of rejuvenation that remain unchanged for decades. Old and young parts of the brain live together every day. During this time, the transmission of ego consciousness takes place imperceptibly, even without therapy. At some point after about 90 years the whole brain was replaced. It was interesting that the test animals still mastered their dressage. The orangutan with a completely rejuvenated brain prepares its beloved daily coffee without having been taught this technique again. His everyday feedback was sufficient enough for ego consciousness transfer to be carried out to the younger parts of the brain. Actually, the ego consciousness is basically just the memory of everyday life, and living endlessly works because nature had integrated forgetfulness into the consciousness. Brains without feedback have no self-awareness of their own, only the potential. Diets made it possible to fit sizes,